Hello everybody and welcome. So this is part 3 of my How to Winterize Your Pond video series. And this video is going to be all about the actual pond itself and the equipment and everything else that's inside of it except for the plants and fish, as I already covered that in the first 2 parts of this video series. So now, assuming you brought your fish and your plants inside, there's obviously going to be some different things you have to do with your pond. Now, one option would be to just completely empty the pond. Just take everything out of the pond, leave it clean so it's easier to set up again in the spring, which isn't a bad idea. For the most part, because I'm going to be trying to keep a couple goldfish out in the pond this year, I'm not going to do a whole lot. So the big goal is for me leaving the pump running. If the pump's running, and in theory that should be enough to keep the goldfish alive if the temperature stays warm enough. So there are a couple ways you can, make sure the temperature stays warm enough. You can add heater. They do make pond heaters. Make sure you do get a good one. Don't get a super cheap one. If there's like, a used one for $10, you may not want to use it, just because if the heater breaks or messes up or anything, it can end in a disaster, and that would be the last thing you'd want, is to go to all this effort just to have your fish die because you got a cheaper heater. So for me, the important thing is keeping the water flow. If the water flow is going, it'll keep the fish alive. Now, these floating plants will die. These water hyacinths and water lettuces will not survive. I don't have enough room for them all indoors, so they're just kind of out here providing as much cover as they can for my goldfish before it freezes, because I don't want them to get killed by a raccoon or a predator or anything else like that, which has happened to me in the past. So the important thing is make sure your pump isn't going to freeze. Make sure your water lines, your hose, like this here, make sure it won't freeze. If you keep the water moving, it shouldn't. Like, in theory, that should keep it from freezing. Keep it running. If you can't leave the pump on, get an air stone. I've never really invested in a pond air stone, but that is another option you can, or nothing you can try. Excuse me. So with my pump, I don't know if I can really show it to you, but it's way down there. But it has this valve that you can turn, which allows it to blow water straight up, right at the surface, which would do the same thing as it would kind of do the same thing an air stone would do. It would create surface agitation, which would allow some gas exchange. However, an air pump would be even better, because that way you're pumping actual air into the water, which keeps it oxygenated, which is the big key thing, besides obviously making sure it doesn't get too cold. So you're taking down your pond. What do? So last year I just left mine and didn't really do anything with it. So I left most of these floating plants in it. They didn't really survive, but I think I partially drained it. I don't think I did it on purpose. I just kind of never went back and filled it. But so it just kind of sat there. The pump wasn't on because I didn't want to damage the pump, and there was no need because there wasn't any fish out here. So that's one thing you can do. You can just unplug it, leave it alone, and not worry about it till the spring, which does work. That's definitely a thing you can do. You can try and keep it running to see how things do. Like, one thing I'm going to be looking for next year is this Elodia. Ooh, that is very cold water. So this is different. This is Elodia, which is native to North America, so it might do fine right here. If it does fine, I'll be much less worried about leaving things out here, especially for different fish and stuff. It's turning brown. It may not survive. It may just freeze. But it's a local native plant, so it might. Who knows? Some plants can surprise you, even if it looks like they're dying like that. So that's pretty much all there's to it with the actual pond. You can do a clean. You can just empty the entire pond, clean it out, get all the leaves out and stuff. However, that's another thing you can do in the spring. Which is another one of the big advantages of bringing everything inside, like I have there, which I'll show you here in a second, is that it will just allow you can just clean out your entire pond and make it all look good in the spring, and you don't have to worry about dealing with a bunch of leaves, creating tannins in your water, and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the big added benefits of just bring everything inside. You can do a big spring clean, drain the pond out completely, get all the leaves out, move all the plants back into the pond, refill it, make it look brand new, and just have that new pond look, which is a really nice look. However, with larger ponds, that's not really going to be something you can do, because that would just be a ton of work to do every year, is completely drain a pond and then clean it all up. But it is a thing you can do. Bring everything inside just makes that a whole lot easier, because your fish are already inside. You can just acclimate them over in the new pond once it's clean, and then you're done. You can enjoy it all year and bring everything in the fall. So I'll go ahead and show you the actual tanks in here, and I will just kind of talk a bit about how you can reuse your pond stuff. Now, my pump in my pond is still outside. I don't actually use it for any of these tanks here. However, an idea that I had was to actually set up a tank, or like this tub. I didn't even have the tank, but I'd set it up and I'd have the pump in it. It'd just kind of pump the thing out and make like a waterfall to keep it oxygenated, and that way I don't have to necessarily buy an extra filter or a pump or anything like that, which is something you could do. If you want to do a bit of plumbing, you could put this, like a tank like this, on a stand and put this at the bottom, and you could have the pump water up to this tank, have an overflow which overflows into this tank, or the tub, sorry. And that's the thing you could do. That's, a legitimate good idea. So now in here I just have a small internal canister filter thing right there. There's a couple goldfish I moved over, and a bunch of different plants. So the other thing to consider is your biological media. The plants, these pots have a lot of bacteria in them, a lot, which essentially acts as a filter. Like, it's going to do the exact same thing as this hang on the back filter is going to do, as long as I have water moving through it. So even with this simple filter like that, moving the water into the plants is going to help filter the water, because of all the bacteria and stuff that's already alive in it. I will actually get back out here and look at the pond real quick and show you something else. You can bring your filter inside. My pond does have a filter, albeit it's kind of covered and it's going to be hard to get out. But underneath this, there's actually a tray. Underneath it's a bunch of lava rock, and it's this deep hole where the outtake for the pump, there's the hose right there, the pond hose, and that goes down to the bottom of this big hole. And at the bottom of the hole is just outlined in pond liner, and that just kind of comes up, and then it hits this cap thing right here, which just has some plants and stuff in it, some pretty basic stuff, and that just added filtration and makes it look nicer. So then it overflows into the pond. You can bring that in, so it's in a basket, and I can just take the basket in. I can set up a filter inside, and I can essentially just remake the pond, but indoors. If you have the ability to set up a more complicated setup like that, where I have the tanks hooked up with a filter, that is, that could really, really work to your advantage. For the most part, that's really it. There's not a whole lot else you could really do for equipment. There's only so much you can, equipment-wise, you can put in your pond, maybe besides like lights or decorative lights. But they should tell you whether or not to bring them inside, if they're winter-proof or something like that. Small decorative lights won't really matter. Air stones are great. Just make sure you have the oxygen. And if you haven't, check out the first two parts in this video series. The first part is where I talk about the fish. The second part is where I talk about all these plants. And then obviously this is where I'm talking about the equipment and the actual pond itself. So I hope you found this video series helpful. Leave a comment suggesting a future video idea, or if there's something I didn't cover in enough detail, just let me know, and I can go back and I can make another video. I'm going to try and do some in the spring, so you can kind of see how I set my pond up and all that kind of stuff. So just make an awesome day, guys. Check out my blog site. Link to that will be in the description of this video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and like the video, and just see you guys later. Bye.